I bought a house from the Maddox Heirs last summer. I wanted peace after my breakup. I was 34 and working as a freelance graphic designer. The old house was on a quiet, tree-lined street. It seemed like the perfect place to clear my head. The creaky floors and peeling wallpaper gave it character. I thought it would inspire me. The first few nights were peaceful. I settled in, enjoying the solitude. On the second night, I opened a dusty drawer in the dining room. I found old photographs of a family in happier times. But there was something off. In every one, I spotted a shadowy figure lurking in the corners. It made me uneasy, but I shrugged it off. Maybe it was just a trick of the light. As days passed, the strange occurrences began. The lights flickered. I saw movements out of the corner of my eye, but when I looked, nothing was there. I convinced myself it was just my tired mind adjusting to the new space. Then, one night, I heard music. Soft, haunting notes floated through the halls. I told myself it was the house settling. But deep down, I felt something was wrong. I found myself researching the Maddox family. I wanted to learn their history. The more I read, the more curious I became. I learned about their tragedies and the rumors that surrounded them. I began to wonder if they were still here, trapped in their sorrow. It felt like their pain intertwined with my odd experiences. One evening, while sketching, something startled me. The door creaked open without warning. I froze. There was no wind. The cold swept through the room, sending chills down my spine. I glanced at the door. I heard soft humming, like a distant lullaby. I tried to ignore it, but the house felt alive, restless. I decided to explore the attic. I wanted to find more photographs, something to explain what I had seen. Climbing the stairs, the air grew thick. It was hard to breathe. When I reached the attic, the door slammed shut behind me. I was trapped. Panic flooded me as I heard whispers. They came from beneath the floorboards. I knocked, but nothing responded. It felt like something was watching me. Help! I shouted, but my voice echoed back, empty. I felt helpless and scared. And then I saw it. A shadow moved in the corner. I couldn't make out what it was, but I knew it was not friendly. My heart raced. I turned toward the door, hoping to escape. But it remained tightly shut. The whispers grew louder. Why did you come here? I felt cold sweat run down my back. I didn't have an answer. I wanted to say I was looking for peace. Instead, I just stood there, frozen in fear. The darkness closed in. I didn't know what would happen next, but I felt like I had stepped into something far beyond my understanding. I stood in the attic, heartbeat hammering in my chest. The whispers surrounded me, an unsettling chorus that echoed in the corners of my mind. I felt paralyzed, every instinct screaming at me to flee. Yet I couldn't move. That shadow loomed closer, a dark silhouette against the dusty ceiling, its form twisting and shifting like smoke. Help! I shouted again, desperation clinging to my voice. No response. Just silence, thick and stifling. Then, with a sudden gust, the air changed. The temperature dropped, and the whispers morphed into frantic murmurs, unintelligible yet frantic. It was as if the house itself was urging me to listen. I took a deep breath, clenching my fists as courage flickered within me. I had to find out what was happening. I had to understand. Why did you come here? The voice echoed again, sharper now. It felt like the question was directed at me, clawing through the confusion of my thoughts. Maybe I could find anything that could help explain this nightmare. I took a step forward, almost against my better judgment, and scanned the attic. It was cluttered with old boxes, forgotten relics of the Maddox family. I could barely see anything in the dim light filtering through the grimy window. My fingers brushed against a tattered box labeled memorabilia. I hesitated but forced myself to open it, hoping it held answers. Inside, I found a jumbled mess of letters tied with faded ribbon and a few more photographs. As I rifled through them, a gust of wind slammed against the attic window, rattling the frame. I jumped, my anxiety spiking. But I pressed on. I unfolded a letter, written in elaborate cursive. It spoke of loss, of a mother mourning her child. I scanned more letters, each detailing despair and heartache the family had endured unimaginable suffering. An icy fear settled deep in my bones. I understood now. They were still here, their grief woven into the very walls of the house. Suddenly, I caught a glimpse of movement in my peripheral vision. I turned just in time to see the shadow dart behind a stack of boxes. A chill raced down my spine. My instincts urged me to run, but part of me needed to understand, to confront whatever this was. "Show yourself," I demanded, my voice shaky. "What do you want from me?" There was a pause, then a low, haunting laugh echoed through the attic, sending a wave of nausea through me. That laughter not human. Something stirred amidst the boxes. Just then, the door swung open, flooding the attic with sudden light. I felt the weight of the darkness retreating, but something remained. I hesitated, feeling the presence still lingering. Then, from the doorway, a figure emerged, a person. I squinted. Whoever it was, they were dressed in old-fashioned clothing, translucent and shimmering. "Help us," they whispered, their voice a mere echo. My heart raced. Who were they? What did they want? And could I do anything to help them find peace? Something compelled me to step closer, but dread rooted me to the spot. I was on the edge, teetering between curiosity and terror. I wasn't sure what awaited me next, but it was too late to turn back now. The figure in front of me shimmered like an old photograph, details wavering as if caught in a breeze. "Help us." The words echoed once more, tugging at a part of me that wanted to believe there was still hope. That I felt my pulse quicken. "Who are you?" I asked, stepping forward, driven by a mixture of fear and intrigue. Would it reply? Would it even acknowledge my question? The figure tilted its head, an expression of deep sorrow passing over its features. "The children," it said softly. "You must find them." "Find them?" I echoed, struggling to understand. What children? My mind raced as I searched the attic for any clues that could make sense of this. "Please," it continued, growing more urgent, "they're trapped beneath the sorrow." The shadows in the attic seemed to darken, coiling tighter around me. I wanted to look away, to flee from this bizarre encounter, but I couldn't. A part of me knew this was a chance to uncover something vital, not just for me, but for whatever lingered in this house. "Where do I find them?" I asked, desperation creeping into my voice. I felt stupid for even talking to a spirit. But it felt real, too real. The figure raised a faint hand toward the corner of the attic, where the floorboards met in a jagged line. "Below. Follow the whispers. Below." I repeated, glancing around the room. The overwhelming whispers grew louder, a chorus of voices begging me to listen. I shivered. What did it mean by below? Without waiting for an answer, the figure started to dissolve, becoming less defined, as if the light was pulling it away. "Help us," the voice faded, merging into the whispers, leaving me alone with the dreadful feeling of being watched. That I stepped back, my breath quickening. I had two choices: leave this haunted space or dig deeper into whatever mystery this house concealed. I knew I couldn't abandon the search. Not now. Not after what I'd experienced. That I approached the corner the figure had pointed to, kneeling down to examine the floorboards. My fingers brushed against the edge where they met, revealing a slight crack. I pried at it gingerly, my heart racing with each creaking sound that echoed back. Suddenly, one of the floorboards shifted. I pulled harder, and it popped loose, revealing a dark space below. My stomach twisted with anxiety, but somewhere beneath that anxiety was a flicker of excitement. What if I found something, anything to piece together this tragic story? I grabbed a flashlight from my pocket, shining it into the small opening. The light didn't reach far, revealing only the darkness below. Drawing in a shaky breath, I glanced back at the now empty attic. The absence of the figure left a hollow echo of fear behind. Then, just as I was about to lean in closer, I felt a rush of cold air past my face, and the whispers surged, louder than before. Panic settled in. Everything darkened for a moment. Something felt wrong. "Get out!" A voice shrieked, distinct among the murmurs, sending icy fear coursing through me. Before I could react, the darkness enveloped me, and my vision blurred. What was down there? What had I just uncovered? I was standing on the brink of something deep and sinister, and I had to find out what it was before it consumed me. The world spun back into focus, harsh and dizzying. I stumbled back from the opening, the cold air slapping my face as I blinked rapidly. My heart threatened to escape my chest. I glanced around the attic, looking for any sign of what I had just encountered. But the shadows were still, cloaked in silence. "Get out," the voice had echoed. It felt like a warning, a desperate plea to turn back. But what could I do? Curiosity gnawed at me, fierce and unrelenting, that I steadied myself against the floor, my hand brushing against the loose floorboard. There was something beneath, something that mattered. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to think. Was I really prepared to go down there? I had to know what secrets hidden in the dark were tormenting this spirit. With shaking hands, I lowered myself back to the edge. The flashlight flickered as I pointed it down into the opening. The beam cut through the thick darkness, revealing damp earth and cobwebs, but nothing else. I swallowed hard. Was I really about to crawl into the unknown? "Follow the whispers," I muttered to myself, recalling the figure's urgent tone. I gritted my teeth and began to hunch down, my knees scrunching painfully against the splintered wood. The moment I crossed the threshold, a wave of frigid air washed over me. I gasped, my pulse racing as I leaned into the hole. The stench of mildew and decay curled into my nostrils, sending a shiver through my spine. Shadows danced along the walls as I scanned the space. My light caught the glint of something metallic lying flat against the dirt floor that I edged closer, crawling further into the tiny cavity. The whispers persisted, swirling around me like a haunting melody. The closer I got to the object, the louder they became, like voices straining to be heard. "Help us," they repeated, their tone urgent yet sorrowful. When I reached it, my fingers brushed against bone. I recoiled, gasping as reality settled in. What was I uncovering? I shifted the dirt away with my hands, revealing a small, rusted locket tangled with brittle strands of hair. My heart raced as I slowly pried it open. Inside were two faded photographs, a boy and a girl, perhaps 8 or 10 years old. A choking sensation filled my throat. Was this evidence of the children the figure spoke of? The horrific ends they had met? I felt nausea pool in my stomach. No good could come of this. But still, I needed to know. Suddenly, the atmosphere shifted. The whispers turned frantic, a tide of panic crashing over me. "Run!" The shout rang clear, wrenching a scream from my lips. With a jolt, I turned and scrambled back toward the entrance, feeling the ground tremble as if the house itself wanted to expel me. My fingers fumbled against the wood. "No, no, no!" I breathed, shoving against the floorboard, but the darkness drew tighter, wrapping around me like a vice that I needed to get out. Just before everything slipped away, I saw a shadow looming behind me. It flickered in the dim light, and I could barely make out its shape. Someone was there. And then, the lights flickered off completely. I gasped as the darkness swallowed me whole. My flashlight flickered for a moment, barely cutting through the pitch-black void, but then it died. Panic surged within me as I scrambled, pushing against the loose floorboard with desperate force, but it wouldn't budge. The realization settled like ice in my veins. I was trapped. "Get out!" The voice echoed in my mind, but now it was just a whisper among the rising tide of my fears. I froze, breathless in the oppressive silence, trying to listen for any sounds, any signs of the shadow that had been watching me. Time felt stretched, as if the seconds were hours. Then, I heard its soft footsteps coming from the darkness behind me. My heart raced as I turned, squinting into the void, but I couldn't see a thing. "Hello?" I called out, my voice trembling. Nothing answered, just the growing weight of dread. I shook my head, trying to clear the fog of fear. This wasn't the time to succumb to panic. I had to find a way out. Dropping down, I felt blindly along the wall, hoping for a way forward or a way back. The ground was damp and cold against my skin, and a chill ran down my spine. Then I felt something. A rough edge beneath my fingers, like a small lip of wood. I followed it with my hand, tracing a path, and found a small door nestled into the wall, partially hidden by dirt. My heart raced. Could this be another way out? I pushed against it, but it wouldn't yield. My breath sped up as I realized I was stuck, really stuck. Suddenly, my fingers brushed against the locket. It had fallen from my pocket during my frantic movements. I snatched it up, clutching it tightly. I thought of the children in the photographs. The boy and the girl, had they been trapped too? Panic gripped me again. What if I was destined to join them in this forgotten place? "Help us," the whispers returned, louder this time, echoing around me. They felt suffocating, desperate. I squeezed my eyes shut, fighting against the overwhelming urge to scream. Just then, a soft light flickered on in the distance. Its glow seemed to cut through the darkness, almost beckoning me, but it was faint. I hesitated. Should I follow the light? Or should I try to escape through that little door? The whispers grew frenetic, urging me toward the light as if they knew something I didn't. "Help us." They screamed again, and I felt a strange pull. My heart hammered in my chest. I sprinted toward the flickering glow, pushing with all my might against the fear and the dirt that had swallowed me. This could be my last chance, and then, everything crashed. The little door splintered open, and I tumbled backward into the light. That's when I saw it, an old trunk, bound in rusted locks, waiting for me to discover its contents. But before I could reach it, the whispers transformed into wails, drenching the air with anguish once more, leaving me frozen in place. I stood at the edge of the trunk, the wails still ringing in my ears. Every ounce of my instincts told me to run, but my feet felt rooted to the floor. The trunk loomed before me, its surface scratched and tarnished, as if it had been waiting for years, guarding whatever was inside. Taking a deep breath, I stepped closer. My fingers brushed against the rusted locks. They were old, but as I examined them, I spotted a tiny keyhole, its edges frayed. I felt a pulse of hope. If I could find a key, maybe I could unlock the secrets hidden inside. Maybe it was what the voices wanted. But as I thought about it, a pit of dread settled in my stomach. What if this trunk held memories too dark to face? I shook the thought off. I needed answers. I needed to know what had happened here. The dim light flickered again, illuminating the edges of the room. It was an odd space. Long-forgotten items dotted the floor around me, relics that felt heavy with stories of the past. A cobwebbed mirror snagged my gaze, reflecting the dim light. In the glass, I couldn't help but wonder if something else was lurking behind me. "Get out." The voice crept back, firm and insistent. I glanced over my shoulder, half expecting to see someone there. But there was only darkness. The cold sweat on my skin reminded me to focus. I couldn't let fear control me. That I knelt before the trunk, my heart pounding in sync with the whispers that had now quieted to a tense simmer. Perhaps I could force it open, but that felt too risky. Instead, I began examining the room, searching for anything that might fit the keyhole. My hand stumbled across a few forgotten objects, a broken doll, a stack of dusty papers, and then, something that made my breath catch. A small, ornate key lay half buried under a pile of dirt. My pulse quickened as I picked it up, its surface cool and heavy in my palm. Could this be the key I needed? I hurried back to the trunk, my heart racing as I inserted the key into the lock. Would it fit? I turned it slowly, half expecting everything to erupt into chaos. To my shock, the lock clicked open with surprising ease. As I lifted the trunk's lid, the sound of creaking wood filled the room, a sound that seemed almost alive, the stench of mildew burst forth, and I recoiled for a moment. Cautiously, I peered into the darkness of the trunk. Inside, layered fabric obscured the contents. I let out a ragged breath, reaching in and pulling aside the first piece of faded quilt, resembling the one in my grandmother's attic. Just then, the whispers returned, louder than before, increasing in urgency. "Help us!" they cried, and I felt the weight of their suffering wash over me. My hands trembled as I pulled out another object, a crumpled letter. Its ink was faded but still legible. That I opened it, while the cries swirled around me. What had I uncovered? As I read the words scrawled on the page, I suddenly understood I was not alone in this darkness. Someone was trapped, just like me. But who were they? The urgency pressed down on me, and I could feel time slipping away. I needed to know more, to dig deeper into this haunting history. But before I could make sense of it all, the room went cold. The shadows shifted, and my heart sank as I sensed a presence behind me. Something was coming closer. I turned slowly, pulse racing, but the darkness remained still. My mind screamed for me to flee, yet I couldn't pull away from the trunk. The letter in my hand felt heavier suddenly, like a weight demanding to be acknowledged. Then, just as I was about to look away, a figure flickered at the edge of my vision. I blinked. Gone. I was imagining things, right? The weight of the atmosphere felt suffocating, like quicksand ready to pull me under. "Help us!" The whispers reached a peak, a chorus of despair that echoed through my bones. I had to know who they were. Quickly, I shoved the letter into my pocket and felt around inside the trunk again, pushing aside the quilt. I unearthed more letters and faded photographs. My fingers brushed against something sharp. I pulled it out. It was an ornate locket, tarnished but beautiful, heavy with untold stories. I opened it cautiously. Inside was a tiny picture, a girl with wide, terrified eyes. The resemblance was uncanny. I felt an icy grip wrap around my heart. Was this me? No, it couldn't be. But why did it feel so familiar? The air thickened, and I shivered as the temperature dropped further. I sensed the disturbance behind me again, stronger this time. There was definitely something there. Turning around, I faced the darkness, and that when I saw it, a shadow looming just outside the reach of the flickering light. "Who are you?" I managed to whisper, my voice trembling. The shadow inched closer, and I braced myself against the trunk for support. "We need your help," it said, its voice strangely melodic yet strained. "They won't let us go." Panic surged through me. "Who? What do you want?" The figure remained cloaked in darkness, its features indistinct, but I felt a deep sense of sorrow emanating from it. "You have the key, but you must choose wisely. Time runs out." What choice? I had questions, but now I was afraid to ask. I remembered the locket and the girl's face. "Is this why you're trapped? Because of what happened to you?" The shadow flickered again, shifting as if reluctant to respond. "You must uncover the truth. Only then can we be free." I swallowed hard, uncertainty swirling within me like a storm. I felt their despair washing over me, a desire for resolution that reached deep into my heart. But there was too much I didn't understand. The trunk, the voices, the shadow, everything was connected, and I feared what I might discover. Then, just as quickly as it had appeared, the presence receded into the darkness, leaving me alone once more. Heart racing, I turned back to the trunk. I had to dig deeper. There were more letters, more secrets. And who was the girl in the locket? What truth could free them? As I rummaged through the trunk again, determined to resolve this mystery, I felt the echoing presence return, but this time with more urgency. "Find the final piece." The air crackled with tension, and I froze. Whatever had come before was just the beginning. I had opened a door, and now there was no closing it. I hesitated, staring down at the trunk, my heart thumping in my ears. Find the final piece. The phrase buzzed in my mind like a persistent fly. What did it mean? Was there something else hidden in the trunk, or was it something outside? I took a deep breath and forced myself to sift through the letters and photographs again. Each fragile piece of paper felt like a clue, but they also felt like ghosts, echoes of the past that I didn't fully understand. Breathless, I took out a few letters. They were dated years ago, written in a shaky hand. One of the letters caught my eye. It was addressed to someone named Evelyn. The frantic scrawl spoke of betrayal, fear, and a mysterious secret that could destroy everything. My fingers trembled as I read, tracing the faded ink with my eyes. Evelyn, they will never let us go. The moment you uncover the truth. I stopped. My heart raced. Who was Evelyn? And what truth was she supposed to uncover? The shadows around me felt thicker now, almost alive. The whispers resumed, a distant echo of "help us." I dropped the letters onto the floor, frustrated. With the locket still clutched in my hand, I turned back toward the darkness. What do you want from me? Silence answered. My breath quickened. I felt an urge to leave, to slam the trunk shut and forget everything. But I couldn't. I was drawn to the mystery like a moth to a flame. What did it mean to have the key? Then, the air changed again, suddenly charged with energy. Listen. It was the shadow's voice, more urgent than before. You must trust your instincts. Before I could respond, a gust of wind rushed through the open window. Papers scattered around the room, swirling like a mini tornado. I shielded my eyes and stepped back. When the chaos settled, I noticed something glinting on the floor, a small key. I picked it up, feeling its weight. It was ornate, like the locket, and felt cool against my palm. Is this the key? I whispered, half hoping for a response. But only the quiet returned. The feeling was overwhelming. I had to find out what it unlocked. I glanced back at the trunk. For a moment, I hesitated. My gaze shifted to the shadows lingering in the corners of the room. Are you saying I need to look for something else? Suddenly, a chill swept through the air. Time runs out. You must hurry. The urgency in its voice jolted me. Without thinking, I moved to the hallway. My heart raced. Was there another secret door nearby? I pictured the way the old house creaked, its unique architecture hiding more than just memories. The key in my palm felt alive, urging me onward. Please, show me, I said, desperation creeping in. Just then, a loud crash echoed behind me. I turned quickly, but the trunk stood still, its contents scattered on the floor. Then everything went dark. I swallowed hard. Whatever had come before was nothing compared to what was unfolding. I had to act fast. With the darkness pressing in, I could either follow the whispers or run. But something deep inside told me I was close to uncovering the truth. I had to find the final piece. As I stood in the darkness, my heart felt as though it might burst. Instinctively, I gripped the small key tighter. The shadows loomed around me, and I strained to hear anything over the pounding of my own pulse. I took a cautious step into the hallway, the floor creaking beneath me like an anxious confession. The dim light from the window barely illuminated the corridor ahead, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something awaited me in the gloom. I hesitated, listening for any sounds that might guide me. The whispers had faded, but a tension hung in the air, thick and suffocating. As I crept forward, I found myself standing before an ancient door I hadn't noticed before. It was slightly ajar, its hinges rusty and in desperate need of oil. I peered closer. The wood was worn, like it had been neglected for ages. A sense of dread washed over me. Could this be the place the key fit? Please let it work, I whispered to myself, the words barely audible in the stillness. I approached the door, my heart racing as I slid the key into the lock. It felt cool to the touch, and with a gentle twist, I felt the mechanism give a satisfying click. The door creaked open, revealing a dimly lit room cluttered with old furniture draped in sheets. Dust motes danced in the air, illuminated by a thin beam of moonlight filtering through a grimy window. A wave of nostalgia washed over me, mixed with a potent curiosity that I stepped inside, cautiously taking in my surroundings. A large mirror hung askew on one wall, reflecting a twisted version of me. I turned my head to the side, trying to catch the glimmer of something buried beneath the sheets nearby. The room felt like a time capsule, holding its breath, waiting for someone to uncover its secrets. That I pulled back the sheet, revealing an ancient trunk just like the one in the other room but smaller and more ornate. My fingers trembled as I instinctively reached for the latch. Thoughts raced in my mind. Could this be connected to Evelyn? Was this where the final piece lay hidden? Before I could open it, a chilling breeze swept through the room, causing the door behind me to slam shut with an echoing thud. Startled, I jumped back, my breath hitching in my throat. This felt wrong, like I had awoken something that should have remained dormant. I forced myself to take a step closer to the trunk and lifted the latch. The sound echoed ominously in the confined space. With a deep breath, I lifted the lid. Inside, layers of silk and velvet covered something solid. A glimmer caught my eye. That's when I saw it, an envelope sealed with wax, adorned with a crest I recognized from the letters in the other trunk. My hands shook as I reached for it. The urgency from before pulsed inside me. Whatever was inside could change everything, but before I could unwrap the envelope, I felt a presence, a cold rush of air at my back. "You shouldn't have come here," a voice hissed, sending a jolt of ice down my spine that I spun around, my heart racing. The room felt as if it had shrunk, closing in around me, the shadows thickening once more. I faced the void, desperate to find the source of the voice. My hands trembled as I clutched the edge of the trunk, my mind racing. Had I disturbed something that should remain buried? "What do you want from me?" I shouted into the darkness, my voice trembling but demanding. Silence enveloped me, an oppressing weight in the air. And then it came, a low, guttural sound like a growl that rumbled from the shadows. "You seek the truth, but the truth isn't meant for you," it declared, each word laced with a chilling echo. I felt my heart hammering in my chest, a whirlwind of instinct clashing with determination. I needed answers not just for myself but for those poor souls I felt stirring around me, the echoes of their suffering closing in. I need to help them. I shouted, frustration boiling over. Whatever it is that happened here, I won't let it keep you trapped. The air crackled with tension, and the shadows flickered. "Help us!" A chorus of whispers rose from the darkness, threading through the very fabric of the room. I sensed their pain, a collective yearning for release, but the figure looming in the shadows felt more predatory than protective now. The realm between desperation and fear teetered precariously, but I knew I had come too far to back down. My fingers tightened around the sealed envelope, the crest pulsing with a distant connection to the voices. "I need to know. Then prepare to lose what you believe," the voice hissed, echoing in an ominous blend of a warning and a promise that I felt the weight of those words settle heavily on my chest. Fire ignited in my resolve. Whatever the consequence, I would face it. I ripped open the envelope, revealing its contents, a stack of letters, detailed accounts of sorrow and betrayal. My breath caught in my throat as I began to read. Each letter unraveled a long hidden tale of the Maddox family, exposing layers of grief, loss, and chilling secrets that had doomed them to this fate. "Do you understand now?" the figure whispered, its voice threading through my thoughts, laced with menace. "Their pain is not yours to bear." "Maybe," I replied softly, my voice steadying as understanding washed over me. "But if knowledge is what binds you, then it is knowledge you will have." As I continued to read, the air thickened with a surge of energy. The cries dissipated, and I felt the oppressive weight beginning to lift. The letters spoke of choices made too late, of lives intertwined in tragic histories. There were no winners here, only ghosts seeking a final farewell. The shadow shifted, moving closer yet reluctant. "You may release them, but it will cost you," it warned, an edge of desperation creeping into its tone. "I choose to help," I asserted, channeling every ounce of strength. Armed with the truths of the past, I could feel their stories rattling through the space around me like a tempest. I refused to let them fight alone. My voice was resolute, bolstered by the sense of purpose that flooded my veins. In that moment of clarity, the shadows around the room began to coalesce, swirling into the clustered memories of the Maddox family. I felt an energy surge, a tether connecting me to the past, as if the stories were breathing life back into the forgotten house, and then it happened. A piercing light erupted from the trunk, shattering the darkness and filling the room with warmth. The shadow howled, retreating into the corners of the room as the whispers crescendoed into a harmonious echo of release. "Thank you. Thank you." The chorus swelled into a beautiful cacophony, rising until it felt almost tangible. The swirling light enveloped me, and with a blinding flash, I felt an immense pressure lift away like a burden finally laid to rest. And then, silenced as I opened my eyes, I found myself back in the attic, the trunk before me closed and still, the air feeling new, cleared of the malevolence that had weighed so heavily before. All around me, the house felt less like a prison and more like a sanctuary with lingering echoes of stories long past. I stood there, heart racing and breathless, feeling an unsettling peace wrapped around me. Had it truly ended? Had I released them? Shadows no longer flitted through the corners, and the haunting melodies faded into whispers of gratitude, but something remained, an echo that still hummed softly in the air. "We are free, but our stories linger," the voice lingered in my thoughts, uncertain yet full of warmth. I could feel the weight of their histories, fragments that were yet to be told. Days passed, and I made the decision to stay in the house, wanting to honor those who once lived within its walls. Each morning I awoke with the distant memories reminding me of their pain, but also of their release. Even now, I wonder if I truly set them free or if I merely softened the edges of their sorrow. As I sip my coffee on the porch overlooking the once gloomy street, I find comfort in the possibilities that still linger. In my heart, I know I haven't solved everything, and there are shadows that will haunt long after this. It's strange, I realized. I feel like I'm a part of their story now, forever intertwined in ways I may never fully understand. I moved on from many of my fears, yet a part of me still looks back. The house stands proud, a reminder of all that transpired. I can't help but wonder if echoes of the Maddox family still swirl with every breeze that dances through the trees, a beautiful, haunting reminder of what came before and what is yet to unfold.